and welcome to another edition of Turned Out a Punk. I'm your host, Damian Abraham, and once again, I'm bringing you a conversation with someone who grew up listening to punk, may or may not still be involved with punk, but had their life changed by the genre in a major way. And today on the show, one of the best front people going from the band Surfbort, Dani Miller, is here. And this episode, you really do hear two lead singers coming together and just sharing so much experience from burrito vomit to... Anyway, more on that in 1 second. But first, if you would like to get in touch with me, head over to the email address turnedoutapunkpodcast@gmail.com. That is run by my brother and show producer and guest booker extraordinaire, Tristan Abraham, and he will get the message to me. Thank you, Tristan, for all the hard work you do for this show. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Left4Damian. If you want to support the show, the best way to support the show is by telling your friends about it, letting them know that we do this podcast, and there's tons of different types of guests on it, and we talk about punk and have a good time. You can also support the show by subscribing to it and rating it on iTunes. And thank you to everyone that does give it a rating on iTunes. I really do appreciate that. You can also support the show by heading over to patreon.com/turnedoutapunk. And thank you to everyone that does do that. And you will find bonus episodes, lost episodes, footnotes, video episodes, all sorts of stuff. So check that out if you will. And if I may, give it up for the fine folks at Vans who came aboard this podcast a few years ago and said, Damian, do what you do, just don't do it out of your own pocket. And they helped me cover the cost of this thing. And for that, I am able to keep doing it. So thank you to Vans for allowing me to kind of keep this thing going. Because there are a lot of weird expenses that creep up with this free podcast. Who would have thought? And finally, I play in a band. We're called Fucked Up. We will be going on tour, hopefully in the new year. All those dates are announced. You can find out more information at fuckedup.cc. We will also be reissuing Epics Comes to Minute. Oh my God, got a lot of stuff going on in my head right now. It's a little bit late too. So, but anyway, Epics in Minutes on Get Better Records. Our friends over there at Get Better will be finally putting that out on vinyl. It's never come out on vinyl. So you can order that over there. Tank Crimes Records, run by our good buddy Scotty Karate, will be putting out The Year of the Horse, which is Fucked Up's 1 hour long song. Jeez. And finally, our friends over there at Matador Records will be reissuing David Comes to Life on colored vinyl, and you can find out more information over at Matador Records. Whew. That's a lot of stuff we're doing. Man, this band seems like it's really busy right now, but it's really not. But it feels really busy when you put it all on paper like that. Okay, on to today's show. Today on the show, one of the great lead singers of our time, Dani Miller of the band Surfbort. Huge shout out to my friends at Riot Style Records and Riot Style Skateboards and all Riot Style in general. For hipping me to this band years ago. And now, since then, they've become kind of like a bit of a cultural phenomena. Like Dani has done ad campaigns for Gucci and has become a style icon. But before all that, and I guess in addition to all that, Dani is one of the greatest front people. Like just a consummate performer and just like a true great punk lead singer. So I didn't know what to expect when we sat down to talk, and we sat down to talk. I was having a very hard day dealing with some parenting stuff and got on the phone to talk to Dani, and Dani got on the phone and explained that, she's having this very hard day dealing with all sorts of stuff, which she talks about on the podcast as well. So I think we both wanted to go into this thing and just forget all our troubles. And I think that's what we did. So I'm excited for you to hear this. Surfbort has a fantastic new record called Keep On Truckin' that is out now. You can find out more information. And then also they will be going on tour as well. Surfbort will be heading out, doing a bunch of shows in the rest of the month of October and into November. So check out all that online. And hopefully go out and see this band because they are if you're going to go back to going to live shows, I can't think of a better way to kind of kick that off than with a surfboard show. All right. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Dani Miller on Turned Out a Punk. Dani, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm stoked.
Well, as I was just telling you off air, this will be hopefully a chance for both of us to escape the stresses of our lives and talk about just bullshit.
Amazing. That's what I need. Life is crazy.
Yeah, no, we don't have to talk about anything of consequence or importance. But we do got to start this off the way they all start off, which is, Dani, how did you get into punk? Do you remember the first time you ever came across it?
Oh, yeah. I was birthed to X. My mom, as she was having me, she was blasting X and the Knitters. So
that is the first time anyone has ever said that in, close to 400 episodes. That is an amazing introduction to punk rock.
Yes,
that is awesome.
Birthed into punk, yeah. And I guess like the first time I kind of like went to punk shows and figured it out, a kid passed me a note in class with a mixtape and a note, and it said, "Meet me at this little cafe venue thing and Che Cafe in San Diego." And I went, and it was like my first punk shows, and everyone was like, there was a lot of like vegan and hardcore straight edge people. I was like, this is radical and like wild. And it was just like random local bands, but I was like, I feel alive. This fucking rules. And I was so stoked. And it was all from a kid like passing me a mixtape in class.
Well, I definitely want to get back to the Che Cafe, but before that, you mentioned your mom birthing you to the Knitters and X, so I take it she was like a punk rocker.
Yeah, she was fully a punk rocker, but like also very rockabilly.
Okay,
yeah. So they grew up, like my uncle plays stand-up bass, and like Dave and Deke combo and like a bunch of rockabilly bands, so they would be going to like punk shows and rockabilly, like a mixture of that. Yeah, so I grew up just with really awesome family. Like they didn't really teach me how to play music, but they had definitely the punk spirit.
Well, that's awesome. And I guess like, yeah, that's kind of the way we're part of the LA punk scene, I guess, went with like Blood in the Saddle and the Blasters and of course X and the Knitters and all those bands, right?
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, the Blasters. Yeah, it's crazy because like X is so like ingrained in me, but like when my mom told me that, I was like, oh, no wonder I feel that. But yeah, I think like growing up, my dad would put on Fantasia records and jazz, so I wasn't totally aware of punk until later on. But yeah, it was a blast being little and dancing to Fantasia still. But when I fully got like schooled on punk and like figured out like and just was totally submersed in it is when Sean Powell, who's my drummer now, joined the band Surfbort, and Maddie and Kilgore. Like our first couple tours, they're like, this is what punk is, because they're from like 80s 70s 80s punk scene in Texas, so they'd be like, check out the Dicks and like all this stuff. So that's like when I really got into like every punk record there ever was from the 80s.
Well, yeah, and Sean, I guess, was also in his fair share of legendary Austin punk bands, right? Like Fuck Emos and the Chumps, of course.
Yeah. Oh my God. I saw the Fuck Emos play. They're
awesome.
I love the vocals are so cool. Yeah, they're rad. And yeah, every time we go to Austin, he's like the mayor of Austin. All the punks, they're like, hello, you're back. It's really fun. But yeah, I think like on my own, before I found out that like junkie shit sucked, I was into like Johnny Thunders a lot. I was like, yes, Johnny Thunders. And like before I moved to New York, I was already listening to like all the New York kind of style punk. And then when I moved there, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Still to this day, like the punks from back then are still out there raging and playing music. It's really cool.
Yeah, it feels like it's such an interesting music. Obviously I'm kind of obsessed with it, but at the same time, I think it's just so interesting to look at because there is such a lineage. Like here you are now in this, what is a hugely influential punk band in your own right, but being birthed to X. Like it's a literal handing down of this music. Like there's almost like this sort of like connection all the way through, like from obviously fuck emos to Surfbort, but even like the rockabilly crossover stuff that we're talking about to Surfbort too.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny because I didn't even know till I was 21 that this was like my past, but my mom, I guess, totally knew as I was being birthed. She was blasting. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And yeah, I that whole like the universe is so crazy like that. Like even all the people I look up to, like Blondie and Patti Smith and all those people, I'm like, their stories like inspired me. Like I was always like so connected to their stories and like lived around the corner from where Patti Smith lived in Brooklyn when she was like a struggling artist, like learning how to paint at Pratt or whatever. And just like yeah, they're I always like looked at their stories, kind of like researched it, like how did they do it? Like this is
Mhm.
so wild. And then kind of just fell upon it myself. And I don't know, it's so awesome and fun. And I'm glad it's happening.
Well, I guess going back to the stuff you were talking about early on, the Che Cafe. What were some of the bands you would see when you go there? I love that venue, by the way, and it was the only venue I've ever played that was catered with the best burritos I've ever had in my life. They brought in
Yeah.
catering for it, and it was the best venue catering I've ever had.
Oh my God, yes. That I would actually like always volunteer in the kitchen. I wasn't even really fully vegan, but I was just like there to support. And I thought it was really cool. It's like, look, I'm working here. Yeah. Um, oh my gosh, who did I see? It's the early on shows. It was so many local bands that were
Hmm.
like really I'm thinking like Snuffleupagus. The Moldy Peaches played
Yeah.
there. Um, Earth.
Oh, that'd been sick. Earth there.
Yeah. I'm like trying to remember, but the reason I don't remember that well is because I ever since the day I got passed that note to go there, I went to every day after school. I like didn't hang out with anyone in my high school. It's like fuck school. Everyone thinks I'm a dork anyway, so I just was a dork at the shows. And yeah, so I went to every show there was basically. Um, so yeah, that I don't remember too much, but
It's amazing how
yeah,
it becomes like that, where it becomes, I felt the same way when I found it. Like, I was searching for it, and once I found it, like, I just wanted to take it all in, like, as much as I could, every
totally.
show.
Yeah, and I was so like I fed off that energy of every show. Like I was in the front row freaking out. I was like a groupie to the music. Like
Hmm.
I wasn't like trying to like bang the musicians, but I was just like, can I bang the music? Like I was just like so excited by the music. I was like, this rules. And then like I didn't realize until my first show when I'm like screaming up there random shit that I got that same energy times 1,000. I was like, oh, this like I just always want to be at a show, hanging with people, dancing and screaming. Like this is what makes me happy. So yeah, that's like when I first discovered that energy, I guess.
I think also like with specifically hardcore shows, but punk shows in general, the audience is almost like I don't know. I can't think of a good sports analogy because I don't really know sports that well. But it's almost like another player on the team, right? Like that audience, like you're saying, like when you get up on stage, it's just like a much more intense version of being in the crowd because being part of the crowd, you're already kind of part of the show, just the way.
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, I also figured that out too. Like when being a singer, I was like, in the beginning, I was like, well, this is so intense. Like, and then I was like, oh, it's not really about me. It's about everyone just coming together, hanging out, and just like raging, getting out all their angst. And yeah, it's like they're everyone's on a team. It's different than like when you go to the club and like maybe some people are like jocking you and like looking at you weird, like fuck you kind of, like at most shows, at least the ones I go to, everyone's just like, what's up? And you're
Yeah.
like dancing together, like this rules, and like sick makeup, sick shoes, like I don't know. And everyone's just having a blast and screaming together. So yeah, it's such a good, I was more of a loner before I connected with music. And I guess like I'm still a loner at times, but the music scene's so powerful with friendship and just like finding your found family. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a lead singer too, and I find like anyone I talk to on who comes on this show, a lot of times the most extroverted lead singers on stage are some of the most sort of introverted people as people. Like it's almost like you need a special kind of mental breakdown that requires you to get up there on stage and just kind of become the conduit for that from the audience and stuff.
Totally. Yeah, I know. I'm such an introvert extrovert. Yeah, that's definitely me. I was like playing my first Europe shows like in 2017 or 2018, something like that. And we were opening for Wolf Alice, and these fans ran up to Wolf Alice and were like, "Oh my God, is Dani back there just like destroying shit and like partying and raging and like screaming?" And they're like, "Yeah." But I was just in the green room, like drinking tea, like hanging out, like not even drinking, just like chilling, like getting all cozy, putting on my makeup. I'm like, yeah, it's people think that I'm like fully insane all the time. And no, I'm a freaking dork. I'm a nerd.
Well, and I think that's like a lot of people just don't appreciate what goes into that kind of performance that you do, right? Like the amount of like mental energy and just sort of like just everything. You have to put it all in there. So like it's not like you can be
Yeah.
like that all day.
Yeah. Like before shows and stuff, I feel like I'm like a crazy Medusa, like in the sea, like conjuring like all this energy together, like a crazy witch. Like, I gotta like get all this energy together to release it. It feels really intense. And yeah, I'm always learning how to like deal with that, and just I'm like, once I step on stage it will be good, but the like beforehand I'm like freaked out, like it's so intense, so much energy to like get myself up there to be like, hello everyone, let's
Hmm.
fucking do this. It's funny too, the first time I met Debbie Harry, um that's what I asked her, like, hey, what do you do when you're really nervous? Because being like a introvert, it's freaking hard to get up there. And she just said, uh it's just an hour of your life, so whatever, it's just life. If you eat shit and fall and like do something weird, like, oh well, it's fucking life. And I was like, oh true, if you put it that simple. I'm like, oh okay. So whenever I try to think of that way more when I want to do anything weird in life, I'm like, it's just whatever amount of time, like it's a little bit of time out of your life. It's not a big deal.
It isn't, but at the same time, also just as a lead singer, it's just it's like you have to do it day in and day out. And like we were talking about earlier, you're almost just like a carnival barker. Like you're there to lead that audience right into that frenzy. So you have to be the party every night, no matter how shitty you feel or whatnot.
Totally. Yeah. Like on one of my early tours, I had this weird like epiphany, and I was like, wait, I'm a joker. I'm like a real life joker. Like back in like the kings and queens day or whatever, I'm like a Renaissance joker up here every night. I'm like, this is hilarious. Never like saw it like that until I was like up there every day, like, hey guys, do do do. And my band is like, I have so much humor in it, and I try to be like Scary Spice at the same time. So I was like, wow, I'm a real life joker.
But that's what we all are, right? Like it's I think that's the best thing about going up there is like you kind of like you realize how silly all these lead singers are that take it super seriously are.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like, wait, like for me, I'm so glad there's like dentists out there doing like who are pros. I'm like, I would fuck people's teeth up. I'm way better at like cheering people up in their day, or like being like, oh fuck your job, like let's forget about your job for a second, just like release all this pent up like aggression and energy. And like, yeah, I'm way better at like making that happen than like fixing someone's teeth or helping them in like court or something. So I'm grateful to be a joker.
So when did you start playing music? Like you mentioned, you grew up with a lot of music around, but you weren't really taught as a young person.
Yeah, I'm not really like a train. I'm not a super good musician. I don't know how to explain it. A
Hmm.
super good musician. I'm not like I could play a couple songs on the guitar. I took piano lessons when I was little, but I just remember being like, yeah, get Jack in the Box after piano lessons. Like I didn't retain any of it. I play like very minimal keys. But yeah, and I am not like a trained singer. So basically, if you're out there and you want to start a band and go hard, go for it.
Yeah.
If you want to scream at the moon and have fun. But I did take my first vocal lessons recently and in the apocalypse, and I was like, oh, you're supposed to breathe through your diaphragm. So that actually helped me on not ruining my throat
Hmm.
and my voice, which was cool. But yeah, I'm not really that pro. And I also got roasted because I'm friends with my friend at Fender. He's just like such a awesome dude, and he got us guitars for Surfbort, and he was like, oh, you should go and talk about your someone who inspires you, who like paved the way. And I went on with and talked about Danita from L7
Yeah.
because she's so freaking cool, and another one of my besties that like I really look up to. And I totally got roasted because I was just like, oh, I'm gonna play in drop D and just like play shit list and drop D. And all the like pros were like, you suck, you're a poser, you're lame. And I'm like, ah. So I've been practicing guitar more ever since I got roasted. But yeah, I'm not a trained musician really.
But that's the thing. You're a lead singer. You know, we don't have
Yeah.
to worry about playing those stupid instruments because what we do is so much harder than what they do.
True. True. And on the new record, I'm like, um, it's produced by Linda Perry, and she really like saw that I wanted to do some like opera singing moments, some like nice romance singing moments, and that was really cool. Instead of just like kind of like battling the music and screaming over it or like raging, I got to do some la 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 singing. So yeah, I love being a singer. It's awesome. And it's the best when people are singing, even when I'm in the crowd of an audience. And like I went to Beck's show the other night. He did like a practice rehearsal show,
Hmm.
and he was doing that thing that like Queen does when you're like, oh, and then you have the audience like repeat after you, like just little acapella warm-up things.
Yeah.
And he was doing that, and like everyone's singing at once. I'm like, oh yeah, this feels so good. This is like, I don't know, in the hippie terms, like some heart chakra, throat chakra release thing. Like I was like, it feels so good to just like sing no matter, like just let it out. And so yeah, I was just like, damn, it's so cool that like when the audience sings with you and sings your lyrics and you're singing, it's just like the best. I
Hmm.
think it's definitely much needed and really healing.
I think just like making loud noises in general, like it just feels like during the pandemic, like, like during the apocalypse, right? Like you said, like we're just quiet. You know, you have to be inside all the time. You got to use your indoor voice, like just to be out and to be able to like yell again. Like the first time I was able to yell, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this feels better than
Totally.
ever before."
Totally. I know. It's that's like so like human to yell.
Hmm.
Halfway through the pandemic, the neighbors above us, we live in this apartment, me and the drummer, and the neighbors above us and below us moved, and they were like redoing the apartments with loud like hammers and stuff. So we got to shred a little bit at the house because like
Yeah.
we didn't even go to a practice space. It was because it was so gnarly, you know?
Yeah.
So I was so stoked for that moment. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Cause I don't know. I'm really nice to my neighbors and I don't want to be too loud, you know?
Hmm.
So it was great being able to like scream and bang and wear whatever high heels I want, like running around the house. Um,
A
but
taste of the
yeah.
old days.
Yeah. I'm glad that screaming is not illegal anymore.
So when was your first sort of like attempt at doing a band?
Yeah, Surfbort.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, I guess wait. Okay, that was a lie because in like fourth grade I had this band at recess called the Angels, but it would just be me and my friend Cassie and Rachel, and we would sing the Angel song. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, this is my first song I wrote. A is for angels, cause that's who we are. N is for nothing, cause nothing can stop us. G is for greatness, all around us, all around us. E is for everyone who thinks we're cool. You roll, anyways. It spells out angels, and there's way longer than that, but I would sing that recess, and then I would go around and be like, you're my number one fan, you're my second number one fan. And yeah, that was my first band, the Angels.
First question: did you play that for Linda Perry? Did you sing that for Linda Perry?
Oh my god, no, I need to though. I need to. There's a clip of me singing it when I'm really little, that I need to send to her. Oh, and then like when I was in like eighth grade or ninth grade, maybe,
Mhm.
I had a band called the Spikers, but all that consisted of was me wrapping myself in spike belts, like as in full. I didn't wear any clothes, just spike belts like across my boobs and like my butt and stuff. And me and my friend Camilla would just like sing like Fallout Boy and like My Chemical Romance, and that, and like be like, this is our band Spikers. So yeah, those are my bands before Surfport.
That is, the both sound like very conceptually deep bands for a young person to be
Yes,
doing.
it was all about the outfits and the lyrics.
So I guess how did Surfport first come together?
Yeah, so me and Matt Piccola, who's it's so crazy. He's a guitarist right now in the band, but he left the band for like 4 or 5 years. And he came back. So it's so exciting because
Yeah.
when you like have a little like fallout with someone, it wasn't a fallout, but he just was like going off the deep end with like drinking, which our whole band is like recovering addict, so it's fitting for the band. But he like had to leave, but now he's back, and it's so magical. It's like you can recover from alcoholism and still shred, and like I don't know, he's always been like accepted into the band, so it's really cool. But me and him, we lived in the Bay, and I was a total maniac when I lived in San Francisco. I was so wild. And I got a job with Darren Aronofsky in New York.
Whoa.
Who's a director. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was like just like a little film student nerd.
Hmm.
And except I wrote my first songs driving around San Francisco. So I kind of started there with writing songs. Like I remember it was like a huge techie takeover, and these like techie bros like were partying on our roof, like spilled over onto our roof. And I wrote a song about that. Like I was just like, fuck you. Oh, and the cops came and like befriended them. So that was my
Oh
first
my
like songwriting. I was like, fuck you guys. Fuck the techies and the cops. But anyways, so me and him, I'll make it a faster story, but
Oh, go please. You don't have to go faster on this show.
we we took our cat Francis and we drove across country, like kind of meth head styles, in 3 days or less. And yeah, we made it to New York. We lived in like a punk squat for like that was covered in cockroaches. Like it was so gnarly. It was just the weirdest. Like it was what you do when you're like 18, 19. Anyways, then like after I lived there for maybe like 6 months or a year or something, my friend from the Bay was living there, and I went to her house, and her roommate Charlie, she had a guitar, and I just did I was just caveman style. I was like, hi, you have a guitar, let's make a band. And she's like, okay. Like I just had no clue about music or anything. I was like, I don't know how to make music, but let's do this. And Maddie, I was actually dating at the time, and he was like, and I formed the group with like girls, and he was like, please let me be in your band. I won't ever like say anything mean to you, and I won't ever control it or anything. And I was like, okay, fine. And like, of course, that's not how it is. Like, band dynamics are so like intertwined and complex.
Oh yeah.
But back then, we were all just the first kind of like representation of Surfbort was it was less music. It was more just like crazy stage antics. Like, I would have Charlotte, the guitarist, like on a leash while she was shredding. Maddie was like full blown maniac. Like, there's a picture of him like throwing a mannequin into the air with his guitar like barely hanging off him, and like people just like choking and like running around, and like I don't even know if I was in the picture. I was just like on the floor somewhere, and that was like what early Surfport was, just like. And oh, actually, at that show where that picture was taken, as soon as we stopped, the sound guy and owner of this club in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, came running up to us trying to like fight us because and like we're like what, and they were like get the fuck out of here, like fuck you, and like getting all muscle like trying to punch me, and I was like bro, and they also had like a wireless mic, and I was so like such a hater back then. I was like, what's this dildo mic, like this is what you're worried about, I didn't even drop it, like. And they basically like hauled us out of there. We had to like get our friends to get our equipment, and yeah, all because our sound was so raw and psycho, and like we didn't even actually break anything, not even like a drum head or anything, and they were like our sound was just like too violent for them. But yeah, so early Surfboat was just wild. And but actually the way I think it like really like the idea of doing the band was just supposed to be for one show, and it was this girl I was dancing with on Valentine's, Chandler. She was like, hey, I'm booking bands, do you know any bands that want to play this? And I was just like, I'm gonna prank her. I was like, yeah, I have a band, because I didn't even know her. And she was like, cool, what's it called? And I was like, Surfbort, because that's like what Beyonce's Drunken Love song said in it, like
Yeah.
that week. It was like the week that I was hanging or something, and thinking that. But yeah, so basically it was just supposed to be one house show, but now it's forever.
It's funny. There's two types of bands in this world. There's the bands that the sound guys really like, and then there are the bands that are really good live, which normally the sound guys do not like.
Totally. I'm okay. I'm trying to impress the sound guys more and more. I mean, Linda is like, she's not messing around with the
Yeah.
sound. She's
Yeah.
like dialing us in. No more like playing with like broken strings and like having random bongo sessions in the middle, like when shit's not working. Like, um, yeah, it's really cool. She's like pushing us to sound better, which is awesome. But yeah, the live show will always be really like fun and a party, but not as psycho as the first shows. That was like I had so much angst of like getting off hard drugs
Mm.
that it was just that was like my main therapy at the time. So it was just like the wildest shows.
And I think outside of, obviously this personal stuff and the heavy stuff you're going through at that time, I think just in general, like playing those first shows, like you're in a different kind of band than when you have to do it every night and you have to like find a way to like, you can't go as hard as you do when you're playing like one show a week or one show a month.
Yeah, and oh, and actually I didn't know that at first. So like on my first tours, like my legs are like fully black
Mm.
with bruises, and like my voice was like burnt out because I didn't know you're supposed to like do it more of like yeah, get through the
Yeah.
tour way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my anxiety and like weird angst like doesn't really let me calm down. Like I don't think I could ever like just stand there the whole set with like the mic on the stand, like la la la, hello everyone, like full of breath and stuff. I don't think I could ever do that because my anxiety is just too crazy. But yeah, I definitely take it a little bit easier nowadays.
It's amazing how like anxiety also is also something that comes up time and time again with people. Like not even just people in bands, but like a lot of like comedians and stuff who have come on the show. The people that are like big performers that have been doing it for years talk about how much of their performance is kind of like I guess, rooted in anxiety, or maybe like a defense to deal with anxiety, or some sort of coping thing. But it feels like anxiety is something that really, is part of the performer's life.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like artists in general just like are super freaks that are just, they feel the world a lot and all their art is so intense. And yeah, anxiety is so real. But I've kind of learned because like I play shows sober and I learned that even though like one time we were in Spain and like we're about to go on the stage to like at the time it was like one of the bigger crowds I played to, and I think it was like 10,000 or something. And I was like, I want to go home. Like, I
Mm.
don't want to do this. Like, why did I choose to do this? Why did I say this was a good idea for me to get in front of all these people and do something like sing? But yeah, I feel like I learned to just take that anxiety and like turn it into power and like kind of switch it around on its head. And then it just turns into like the most fun set ever and like you feel off it in the end. So that's why I like enjoy, like I'm glad I'm not like taking pills or like getting wasted because you don't get that same high of like turning the anxiety around. It's weird. It
Mhm.
sounds nerdy to explain, but it
Mhm.
just it feels so much better working with your anxiety, even though before the show is gnarly. Like especially these first shows back after the apocalypse, I was like, wait, I forget how to do this. I'm so scared, but it was amazing. It turned
Well,
out really good.
it's almost like a controlled nervous breakdown on stage. Like,
Yeah, totally. Totally. And like the people that are coming to hang, they're just like, hi, stoked for the show. And I'm like, ah, like, oh my God. Ah. And they're like, you want some food? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna eat for the next like 5 hours because you can't really eat before. But
yeah.
yeah, it's funny. But it's so worth it. And I feel lucky in that. And I'm like, cool. I not a lot of people know how to like work with their anxiety, and it's cool that it just I don't know, I'm glad I started when I was 21
Mm.
because that it's taken so long to learn how to do this stuff. And now I'm still always learning, and now I'm like, wow, I'm glad I started at my most angstiest time.
Well, you mentioned not being able to eat 5 hours before, and I mentioned the great burritos at the Che Cafe show we played. I can't eat before a show, and I made the mistake of eating and then vomited all over the windows in the middle of our
Oh my
set.
god,
So I
yes,
felt a
that
kinship with you about vomiting burritos when I read about that.
yes, I freaking that's so like when you first start, you don't know that you can't really eat. And well, and maybe some people can eat before, but like if you're just starting out, if it's a punk band, you can't really eat
No.
before because you're like jumping. I'm a tornado and I'm like freaking the fuck out. So yeah, the bar, it was like Don Pedro's in Brooklyn and they had burritos and I didn't even drink anything or anything. I just had an entire burrito.
Hmm.
And in the middle of the set, I was like, oh man, I felt it coming like while I was singing. And I was just like, "Yep, I have to puke." And I puked. And the band kept on the same riff and we're just like sticking with it, sticking with it. And then like I got myself together and then just like went back into the song and everyone's like, what? And then Sean, who's my drummer now, was in the audience because we were playing with his band Ice Balloons. And he was like, yo, let's hang out, you're sick. And then he ended up being in the band and we bonded over that burrito puking. And also I felt so bad because when the other bands went on, they're like, the mic smells disgusting. And I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. But yeah, now like I can eat a little bit, drink water, but I try to just like, I don't know, I make sure I eat breakfast and lunch. I'm into eating, just
Yeah.
not right before the show.
Yeah, no, you have to give yourself a good window, just because, like you're saying, it's just, especially when you're trying to do some sort of harsh vocal where it's like you got a guttural thing coming up that's just gonna bring the vomit with it.
Totally. And I like shake up and down so much.
Mhm.
Like I don't even know why. I have no control over it. I'm just like going like insane. I never am like, oh, I'm gonna plan to dance along the song. I just go insane and then I black out and I'm like, oh whoa. I see videos, I'm like, wow, I look like I'm having like a full like mental psychosis like breakdown, um psychedelic punk rock breakdown. But yeah, it's definitely I haven't puked in a long time on stage. I don't think I will anytime soon, I hope.
Also, you mentioned ice balloons, and what a cool band! Like a true supergroup. You know, the fact that
Oh my
Sam I
god,
Am and
yeah.
TV on the radio, and of course, Fuck Emo's all in there, and
Yeah.
what a great band.
I know. I actually just stayed at the other Sean from Sam I Am and Ice Balloons, the singer, the fly headed singer. I just stayed at his house when I was in New York because he was out of town and I watched his cat. It was nice.
Oh,
But I actually went on tour with them and played one of those mini like Korg little, I forget which one. Oh, like Volca bass, I think. I just like went on tour playing noise with ice balloons. I just like straddled like an amp and just like just pushed random ass shit and like just made weird bad noises all around America. It was really funny.
there's something so free about doing a noise rock band. 'Cause, like really, like people say anyone can do a punk rock band, anyone can do a noise band.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was like, this rules. And Kip is a freaking angel.
Yes.
I love Kip. His hugs are magical. And Dan Shinta's really cool. It was just a blast. I had a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just fun hanging and playing music with your friends. That's like the whole point of all this, hanging with your friends.
Yeah, no, I think he's super awesome, and obviously has been involved in like a ton of amazing bands, but I think it also just speaks to like how vibrant that scene in New York was. The fact that you've got like people that are at the same time as part of like these noise bands, but are also part of bands that are playing late night talk shows and stuff. And it feels like now that stuff is a little more common, like obviously yourselves and stuff, but like I think at the time it's something that was kind of unique to New York a little bit.
Yeah, I I think like just that's just how New York is. Like everyone, it's like going on 24/7. There's like 10 shows a night usually, and everyone just like has a bunch of bands and they're all like interconnected. And yeah, it's just magical. Like you feel alive in New York different ways. So I'm really glad that I started the band in New York. I think like that was like the only kind of zone for it to start, the only vibe for it to start in. But yeah, it's rad just like seeing your friends in different bands through different genres. And it just everyone's just connected. It's really cool. Like and some people will ask me like, whoa, like so many famous musicians and bands and people. And I'm like, oh, well, don't really think of it like that. I'm just like people who love creating and like making cool shit, and everyone just like comes together.
Hmm.
And they could be playing to like five of us in an alley or like at a grandma's birthday party, or yeah, like on a TV show or like huge stadium, and like it's all just good vibes and fun.
Yeah. So I guess like when did Surfbort? Because you eventually move out to LA again, right? Or are you still at the station in New York?
Yeah, well, we're planning just to go back and forth from New York and LA because I really, before the apocalypse, I didn't really stay anywhere because I would be like, oh, time to play Germany. Okay, time to play New York. Okay, time to play LA. Time to fly to China to do a DJ set. It was just like I was just everywhere. So, yeah, I ended up kind of leaving New York a while ago and just being nowhere and everywhere at once. I wouldn't even know like who to tell I was in town because I was just like my brain was so scrambled.
Hmm.
But yeah, now in the apocalypse I've been chilling in LA. And I needed a break from New York because it is really intense. And I'm from California if you couldn't tell by my stoner Valley girl accent. But so like yeah, New York was so awesome for like 7 years, but I needed to kind of like get out of there and kind of find myself again. Cause I just ever since I started the band, I went nonstop and I never really like did any self work or like found like discovered more of myself, I just went nonstop, like just show to show to show to show. So yeah, I've just been in LA, being an LA poser. But I just played New York and I stayed there for a little bit and I fell back in love with it. And I was like, damn, I could live here again. I just don't want to live in like a trash dungeon.
Yeah.
I would rather have like a nicer house now. I'm like a
Yeah.
bougie grandma now.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's a lot easier to be I don't want to say a lot easier to be happier, but it seems like happiness is closer at hand when there's the sun out all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, and I'm like, it's more, yeah, it's not even about like really fancy. I don't need like a fancy play giant mansion. I'm just like, for my mental health, I need a little bit of sun. I need a less trash and rats and stuff, and a little bit and less like puke on the sidewalk.
Cockroaches.
Yeah, cockroaches, and a little bit more just like, I mean, my house is still trash dungeon no matter what, but it's just trash dungeon in the sunshine, just a little bit better for my mental health. But yeah, I'm sure when things are in full swing. I mean, I'm about to tour with Starcrawler in the Garden, and then next year just go full on. So I'll just be everywhere again. Yeah, I'm worldwide mostly.
But it's amazing how this pandemic has forced people, like obviously I think we'd all prefer not to have been forced to do this, definitely, but like it forced us, like you mentioned, self-work there, and it did force
Oh
people in
yeah.
bands to kind of like at least stop and look at what had happened because it goes so quickly. Like you're saying, you have to be touring, and if you're not touring, you got to be writing songs. If you're not writing songs, you got to be
I'm
recording.
so glad I had to stop. I would have
Hmm.
never stopped till I was like 50 to like relook at things. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that that happened because just like, I don't know, I started when I was like living off dollar pizza and
Yeah.
like working 5 jobs, like working construction, working barista, working coat check, like all these, being like a cheesemonger. I don't even know how I did that because I can't, don't know about cheese now. But so like, because of the survival need for survival, I, it mixed with like love for music and like having a blast, I just couldn't stop really, you know?
Hmm.
Like, I was like, wait, I need to somehow like get like do all this. So yeah, the pandemic was a blessing and I'm stoked for it. Yeah, I got sober for real. Like, I'm 7 years off hard drugs. But I was like just still doing coke and like drinking a ton and getting so stoned, like doing dabs and stuff. So I was like, during the apocalypse, I got a chance to just like get sober, find myself, like just be in nature. And I mean, we are still nonstop making Surfbort songs every day, and like we were gonna put out living room recordings because we made so many songs at home. I learned how to record at home. um but yeah, I'm way more present now. I don't know, I've learned so much, so I'm grateful for this happening. And now when I go back out on tour, I'll have like such an appreciation for it and
Yeah.
have more of a grasp on myself, because honestly at the end I got really lonely. I would be like, why does no lover want to like be with me? But I'm like, oh, because I wasn't fully loving myself and I was just nowhere and everywhere and just like out of my mind, kind of like, just that's how you just get on tour if you don't stop.
Well, that becomes a survival thing, right? Like that's how you have to get on tour, and or like to do what we are talking about earlier, right? Getting up on stage every night and putting on that kind of party. You have to be nowhere and
Totally.
everywhere.
Yeah, totally. And like, but when I got like a week off or something, I would just find a random person and be like, "Oh, do you like me? Okay, great. Like, okay, will this be my boyfriend or girlfriend? Like, do they love me?" And then, but like, that's not like, that's too. It ends up being like too desperate and sad and weird. And I'm just
Mm.
like, wait, this is not me. Why do I feel so gnarly? And it's funny, just different layers of that started like coming off, and I started just like finding more true love for myself. And I like just getting a house. I was like, oh, because I didn't have a house, I was just touring. I was like, oh my God, I found myself a little bit more, and like getting sober. Oh, whoa. I like finally dealing with my emotions and like trauma. There's like, I don't know, so many layers just happened. And I mean, I'll ever forever be evolving and learning and fucking up and shit. But yeah, it was much needed, and I'm really excited for the future. And it's funny how everything happens because at the beginning when everything was going down, I was like, I want a second record out, and like, oh, like frustrated with music and like my management and like no like people on my side, like no team really. And but like from working on myself and having all that time, it all just clicked at the right time. And now I have an album coming out, I have a full team, and Linda Perry backing it, which is, when she is my team, she's like the coolest person ever, and trying to just like revamp Surfbort and like made me undepressed about music. So yeah, it's just like perfect timing. I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to find all this magic when I was still like really down, you know? I'm glad I learned so much, and now it's all coming together. And to like tie that into the record, it's called Keep on Truckin'. And actually, there's this thing called Happy Destiny. It's like you trudge the road and to happy destiny. It's kind of like you keep going, and like really magical good things will happen, and like beyond your wildest dreams kind of thing. And I kind of looked up the definition of happy destiny, and at the bottom in quotes, like, you know, when you look something up, they give you examples. The example was keep on trucking. And I sent the like kind of definition paragraphs to Linda, and she just read keep on trucking. And I was like, wait, what? Keep on trucking? She's like, yeah, that's what you just sent me. And I was like, oh. So I was thinking of naming the record either LARP, live action role
Live
play,
action role playing,
or yeah,
absolutely.
because I feel like that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
Maybe I'll save that for like a 7-inch. But or Happy Destiny. And then but it ended up being Keep on Trucking, because I'm like, man, even when you're feeling like the world's ending and shit's so gnarly and crazy and like things are just bad, like just keep on trucking and hold on tight for the good times, because it's so worth it. And like things will happen that at the right time, and it'll be beyond your wildest dreams. So yeah, it's really cool, that whole like meaning and how it turned into our record name.
I was just actually reading the Bad Religion biography that came out last year, and Linda
Oh,
Perry's
cool.
like, she gives them advice really early on when she's like working at some recording studio, and they go in there, and she's like, I think it's her brother that records them early on, or
Oh,
one of her
John or something.
bandmates, yeah,
Yeah.
and stuff. So she's just continuing on her punk lineage, I guess, with you guys.
Amazing. Yeah. She's so cool because well, we connect because we're both ex crazy psycho, I mean, recovering psychos from San Diego. I mean, we're still crazy, but like we used to just do like acid and drugs in San Diego growing up, and started at just like being little punks. So that's like how we really connect. Like we see each other's like younger selves, like, oh, I see you. And yeah, she just really let Surfbort be Surfbort, but then also like takes what we have and like turns into like a punk symphony kind of thing, which is really cool. I was like nervous. I was like, because we've never really worked with a huge producer. So I was like, wait, I don't want them to change the sound or like not understand, because we're really weird. We're just like, I don't know, random. We like make jokes, sing about shit that like in like weird timing and weird kind of structure that's not really a structure. So I was nervous, but she totally just made us so like spot on with what I wanted the second record to sound like. So it's awesome.
Well, this has been awesome. And Dani, anytime you want to come on the show and talk about punk or anxiety or anything, please know the door is always open.
Hell yeah. You actually made me feel so much better, because it's so funny. Today, like couple hours before this, I got my period and I'm going through a breakup, and my album's coming out. So I was like, I feel crazy. How am I going to talk to someone? But you made it so much fun. And now I'm like, I feel like we're best friends and we should totally talk again.
Thank you, Dani, for coming on the show. And you heard right there, Dani will be back for a part 2 at some point in the future. And there's a lot more to discuss. You know, we definitely, it's funny when you talk to some lead singers and you're just like, wow, I see myself. I see myself in everything that you're saying. That's what I love doing. But that's why I love this podcast. You know, it's like a little therapy session for me. Maybe for other people, but for me, it's like a little therapy session. All right, on to the next therapy session from the legends, the Violent Femmes. This was hinted at in the Mike Herrera episode. Actually, it was said that it was coming up in the Mike Herrera episode, but coming on the show, Brian Ritchie is here. And this is someone who I've always wanted to sit down and talk to because I love the Violent Femmes. They are such an important band for me and so many people that come on this podcast. And so to be able to put them into the punk rock universe, like I know they fit in, but to be able to actually see how they fit in, in addition to the therapy, that's why I do this thing, for the satisfaction of kind of like putting all these pieces together of this puzzle. All right, that is it. That is coming up later on this week on this show. That's it for today, though. Remember, as always, Black Lives Matter. The lives of Indigenous peoples matter. We need to protect trans kids. We need to help trans people protect themselves and stop hate and violence towards Asian people and people of different faiths and just, you know, cut all that bullshit out, you know? Like, these aren't political issues. You know, these are just human rights issues, you know? So we support people's rights to choose. And we oppose, you know, I think as any punk does and should, anyone that stands in the way of people's right to choose, you know, their reproductive choice. Anyway, we also go there and make your own culture. Anyone can do this shit. Anyone can start a band, start a fanzine, start something, you know, do it. You know, it doesn't have to be even something that big. Just draw a pitch for yourself. Being creative can help your mental health. Speaking of helping your mental health, try meditation. Like, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I didn't believe in it. And then I tried it and it kind of works. You know, you got to remember to do it, which is also like, you know, adds to the stress in your life, you know, finding time to do it. But once you do it, holy geez, it's like, I liken it to exercising, but for your mind. And I don't pitch any specific product, or I just use one of those apps, but I'm sure there's lots of different ways to do it. And there's lots of different styles. Like I'm merely dipping my toe into the pool, but I'm finding results on a personal level. So maybe you will too. Who knows? Sign your organ donor cards, because by the time they come looking for those organs, you don't need them and someone else can use them. So do that. And that is it. I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.